Not after dark.
Get the fuck out.
Well, I mean, just to hold on.
Hold, please.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for holding.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Unnamed bourbon.
Four Roses is sponsoring 2/3 of this tonight, so
True.
Yeah, I don't know what I poured in this decanter, but it is trash.
on After Dark, baby.
Don't do it.
Siemi Bakayoko, oh yeah. Samina mina, Edward Mende, Samina mina Sam Sadate. He comes from Senegal.
And I think going out and get Saul was the top transfer of the market for Chelsea.
Chesney could have been in the shower smoking a cigarette like he was at Arsenal, and we still would not have scored.
My rants have been fueled by Scotch. Don't get it twisted.
Big Rom. Man, fuck you.
In Roman we trust, right?
You and me are going to have a battle royale about Jorginho and diving.
The flag stays down.
I'm just going to start it off just right away. I'm, Tuchel out. I think I kind of touched on that a little bit in the pod, but there's been enough, like the sample size is now large enough that you can see that there are issues that either he's not willing to accept or that he's not able to fix. I'll focus specifically on the attack here. I can name probably 7 players who have attacking pedigree, who have scored in other leagues or in the Premier League or, whatever. Who I think if they were at any other club, had they gone to any other club, I think they would have continued on that trajectory. But under Tuchel, they have flopped. And, it was one thing when it was like one guy here or there, talking specifically about like Timo Werner. Like it's one thing if it's just Timo Werner. But it's, almost 2 hands worth of players. And, you can talk about, he's at PSG and he had Mbappe and Neymar, not like those are generational talents. Those guys aren't going to, it doesn't matter who the coach is. They're going to get their goals just because those are those guys. But here at Chelsea, it has been a train wreck. And it's like either he refuses to acknowledge the problem, which I think we saw a little bit today in the post-game presser when they asked, with your inefficiency in front of goal, do you need a striker? And he says, no. What do you mean, no? We don't even have a striker. Of course we need a striker. Or it's that he can't coach. His system just doesn't work. Whether it doesn't work in the Premier League or, doesn't work with young players. Just in some way it doesn't work. And the fact that he's A, unwilling to acknowledge it, and B, unwilling to fix it is kind of a bold statement because I don't know that for a fact. But he just isn't fixing it is an issue. And I'm sorry, but to win soccer matches, football matches, you need to score goals.
You keep calling it soccer, we're going to start calling you Jesse Marsh over here. So
Good old Racine, Wisconsin. Cheers to that.
My question, I will take the complete contrarian viewpoint on this, even though I agree with some of the things you say, but just for fun, how many of the players that started today were signed by Tuchel?
Sterling, who so far through 3 matches has been creative but he's also the English Timo Werner, offsides every time he scores. Hesitates too much, which he did not do at City, did not do at Liverpool, which leads me to believe Sterling is the perfect example. Leads me to believe that it's a coaching system error. It's not a player issue. It comes down from the top. But yeah, Sterling is the only one.
Sterling, Cucurella, and Koulibaly, right? There's three.
Yes.
Well, okay, I'm in the attack, just Sterling, but yes, those ones overall.
Yeah. My point is this isn't Tuchel's team. It's not even close to Tuchel's team. This is Tuchel's inherited mess dealing with. So because I can look at this squad and look at a lot of players that played, and I will just say today played subpar. Kai Havertz, Mason Mount, Jorginho, Gallagher, and Edouard Mendy. 5 of our 11 played far below expectations.
Okay, and I acknowledge that. Yes, they did, and it's absolutely not yet fully his team, right? But this isn't like this isn't an MLS expansion team. This isn't where he gets to. This isn't even playing FIFA. This isn't where he comes in and he just gets to, build his own squad. It's a part of the job. When you come into a new club, you have to do that. You have to work with what you have. And he hasn't been. And you look at specifically at this year, Boley and the whole Clear Lake Capital group and all that, it has come out through the various inside people that Tuchel is very involved. And I think Tuchel's even acknowledged that. Tuchel has been very involved in the transfer market. We have spent more than any other Premier League club this offseason. But under Tuchel, we have also, again, sold all of our strikers. Where in what world does that make sense? We talked about going into the very first pod, Parker, you and me, last year. And Tuchel may not have been as involved under Czech and Marina. But I asked you the question, we only have 2 strikers, and Timo Werner kind of isn't one. How is that sustainable? Like, how is that going to work going through the year? Now we have 0. We have Michi, who's a B player. Like, if we had a reserve side, like a full reserve side, he would be on that side. And you have Broja, who could play with the U23s. That's not depth. You literally have 0 strikers on the team.
So, and Matt, I'll let you, opine here eventually, but I'm gonna just keep throwing.
No, go ahead. I'm enjoying this
because so, and I'll preface with my viewpoint on this because this is how I truly think about the situation. I look at new ownership and what Tuchel has done in the offseason, and it to me looks like he has made improvements to the squad. Agree or disagree?
I mean, if we're looking blanket,
did he improve the squad from last year? Yes or no? Because I think he did. Because I think Sterling, Koulibaly, and Cucurella are improvements to people that we had to fill gaps that we, you could argue that we shouldn't have let Rudiger go, whatever. But to me, those are improvements. So I'm just going to say that as a statement that I think they're improvements. But what else could he do? Like what else? Because if he kept Timo, sure, we have another striker, great, but we're still in the same boat. We didn't let Lewandowski leave, the guy who scored 40 goals for us last year leave. We didn't let Mitrovic leave. Mitrovic had record numbers last year for Fulham. We didn't let that dude leave. We let guys that didn't score goals for us leave. And I get that we don't. Olivier Giroud is a good example. I've already said my piece on that. But what I mean is, like, we didn't let the guys go that carried us with goals. Like, we didn't have guys that scored goals. We need to find guys that score goals. Still, yes, agree. But what more? My question to you is, what else can I'll present tense because the window's not closed yet. What else can Thomas Tuchel do to make this a successful window and to make us competitive going forward? Because today it looks like he's done a good amount to make us competitive going forward.
Well, and I'll give that. I'll give that to you. You know, we're selling guys who can't score, but none of our forwards can score. Since Frank left, we cannot score. When Frank was here, I think that's the only time that I can remember off the top of my head when we were, you know, you could go into a match and you could expect, it may not happen, but you could expect 3 goals in a match. Under Tuchel, I haven't looked it up, but I'm going to guess that our expected goals, our XG, is way lower than it has been over the last 20 years. Probably, maybe going back to Mourinho, the first round of Mourinho.
Probably less than 2 a game, right? Like we're not expecting to score more than 2.
I would say our XG is probably somewhere around like 1.6, somewhere in there. But I mean, part of that becomes because, you know, we talk about the Bundesliga being a farmers league. We talk about maybe Serie A doesn't translate, but other clubs seem to get players from those leagues and they score, right? You know, we've got players who know how to put the ball back in the back of the net. You know, Timo scored how many goals in Germany before he came here? Kai scored how many goals in Germany before he came here? Mason Mount was tearing up the lower leagues. Pulisic has been dominant at times for the United States. Hakim Ziyech was the Dutch league is a weird one because that really is a farmers league. But Hakim Ziyech was a stat patter. These guys know how to do it, and so that leads me to believe that the coaching is hindering them. So yeah, you know, we may have sold guys who aren't scoring for Chelsea, but is that the manager's fault? Is the manager hindering their scoring ability? Something about the system just isn't working. And I think we've seen that now over the last probably 7 or 8 months, really since November, probably like right around, you know, the West Ham match when we lost, when we were first in the league and then City passed us, I think was the West Ham match last year. We've come to rely too much on our defenders. We've come to rely too much on set pieces, which now we see we are complete dog shit at. And the lowest common denominator in all of this, you can change players as much as you want, but the lowest common denominator is Thomas Tuchel. I would like to see, if I'm going to throw it out there right now, Graham Potter. Brighton play an exciting brand of football. They move the ball around well. They have guys playing very fluidly. And I think that's something that would suit a Kai Havertz playing out of position in a 9, in a false 9. I think that would suit Raheem Sterling kind of floating around the top of the box. I think that suits Mason Mount kind of floating, you know, just having the fluidity there. Playing this rigid system with 5 at the back when we are struggling in attack and we are playing with 5 defenders on the pitch. It doesn't make sense to me. Logically, it just doesn't make sense. And it hasn't made sense to me since last year, but you know, success kind of, you know, holds that back a little bit. And that's what it did. But I'm starting to get a little jaded on it.
It's been fun listening to this. So my 2 points. A, who is Man City's striker over the last 2 seasons? Their consistent striker. Okay.
Don't have one.
Next point. All the people that have been bought for Chelsea prior to Tuchel. Ziyech, he was a star with, was it Ajax?
Mm-hmm.
Timo Werner was a star with Leipzig. Kai was a star with, was he Leverkusen?
Yep.
you're buying all of the star players out of these teams where they are the focal point. Tuchel's system is not about a focal point. It never has been. You look at it with like PSG or even with Dortmund. Like, yeah, with Dortmund, he had Aubameyang and Lewandowski. Like, he was kind of gifted that. So he had goal scorers wherever he needed it. Same at PSG, right? When you bring all of these people who are stars on their own teams and they think that they're the focal point, you bring them into a team-oriented system, that's going to be different. And I think we saw, and so Collins, I'll kind of agree with your point with this next statement. We saw this today where like nobody wanted to shoot, right? Everybody's like, oh, I can make this extra pass. Oh, I can do this. I agree on that on that point, but at the same time, they aren't his players. They don't fit his team model system, right? These are all people that were stars at their own clubs. They're not the focal point anymore, right? Ziyech is a role player. Kai is starting out of necessity. Timo, unfortunately, he flopped. You know, Christian was somewhat up and coming at Dortmund. He wasn't a focal point, but he was still somewhat up and coming. He was a big name who was doing well out there. You look at all this and it's like, well, they don't fit the team system that Tuchel's trying to do. And it was the same thing at PSG, right? That's how he kind of ran out of it. It's a matter of if they're going to buy in or not. And I don't think that he has the right people that are going to fully buy into a system, because I think that they want to be focal points like they used to be in the past.
Matt, I got to ask you, I mean, I know that you worked for the club for X amount of years, but I don't think we ever sent you guys to coaching clinics. But like, I assume that you've been to coaching clinics though, right?
Yes.
What do they tell you about the players that you have in the scheme that you're running? Do you need to fit the players into your scheme, or do you need to adjust your scheme to the players that you have?
I can. So you have to adjust to what players you have available. However, and Collins, you and I know this better than anybody, sometimes that's not an option. Right now, it's not an option for him. He doesn't have anybody else that can do these things. Like, again,
No, he fucking sold them all.
When we were talking about Ziyech, like, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't trust right now an 18-year-old to come into an attacking position and try and change a game immediately. I think that's way too much pressure. I think that's a huge ask. I don't see it. I go with somebody who is proven, regardless of if they're going out the door, right? Even if Ziyech was staying, I would still say, yeah, you throw him out there. I think at that point you have to. It's kind of like you have to throw your best players out there, regardless of their attitude, whatever. You got to throw them out there, right? It's just kind of the way that it works. But I do agree. Like, yeah, you have to work with what you got. But these are also professionals. They chose to come here. Granted, they know the situation. Managers change, especially at Chelsea. Like, I'm sure that they've done their research and be like, oh yeah, they go through managers pretty quick, so I'm gonna have to change my style of play pretty frequently. As a professional, you have to adjust as well. And if they're not willing to adjust, they know where the door is.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. That's what you're seeing right now. is so to tie it back to the real world, Matt, you're in programming, right? Like,
Mhm.
so let's say that you know get a new people above you, management, supervisor, whatever it happens to be, and they want you because they're the way that they like to have things done is in a different language than what you typically use, right? One that you're not super familiar with, but one that you can like get by in, right?
Yep.
If they have you do that for a year and a half, no wiggle room, you can't go back to the thing that you're comfortable in because you have to fit their system. You're going to be unhappy. You're going to be looking for a place that's more comfortable for you. It doesn't matter that you're a professional because you're a professional at this. You're getting paid for it. You're a human being. You're going to look for the place that's comfortable for you. You're going to look for what you are comfortable with. Just because these guys are professional athletes doesn't mean that all of a sudden they need to start going against the laws of being a human. Right.
But I think that's kind of contradictory because they are professional athletes. Like they get paid to do something very specific, regardless of who's paying.
And they can get paid somewhere where they can play the way that they are used to, the way that they are comfortable. Regardless of whether you're getting paid to do something or you're a volunteer or you're a youth athlete or something, if you're in a situation where you're uncomfortable playing the way that that coach wants you to play, you're not going back. We've seen that at the club level in volleyball. Players aren't comfortable playing the way, playing out of position. You and I have encountered that several times. They're not coming back. They're going to go find another club. It's the exact same thing. And the fact that Tuchel can't, as the manager, as the guy who is setting the system, can't adjust his system to the players that he has for the benefit of the club and the team and to win silverware and all that. It's stubbornness. And the last time we had stubbornness was Maurizio Sarri. Oh, I'm sorry, Antonio Conte.
I would say it's stubbornness on both ends. That's how I would look at it, right?
Yep.
So if Colin, to your point, if we get a player and we flat out tell them, hey, this spot, your spot that you're normally used to playing in is secured, but we're gonna need you to do this, and we will tell you everything that you need to do. We will make sure that you're in this position. We give you a chance to succeed in this position. If they don't take that, that's on them. Right? Like if you have four middles and you want to move one of them to the right side because you need a right side, that's what you have to do. And you're just gonna be like, you're the person best suited for this. We're going to help you get there. It's going to be a shift, but we're going to get you there. They either accept it or they don't. So I think that's I think it's a two-way street.
That's a great point. Absolutely. 100%. The key part there is as the coach, we're going to help you get there. I don't think Tuchel is helping them get there because and the perfect example, you brought this up earlier too. I think it was around the 30th minute today, where the ball was just bouncing around the box. We had, I think it was like a 3-on-2 break or something like that. And it ended up just being a goal kick. But how many times in that build up there was everyone at the bar yelling, shoot, what are you doing? Like that. Again, these guys are professionals. They know how to put the ball in the back of the net. The second guessing makes me think it's a system issue, makes me think it's a coaching issue. Because we've seen it, because we've seen these guys not do this at other clubs under other coaches. And if, again, you look at the lowest common denominator in all this, because players change clubs, you look at the lowest common denominator, and it's Thomas Tuchel.
I mean, if you're trying to adjust to, obviously, with new players and stuff like that, like you have to adjust. But if you're trying to adjust to the manager's system or a new boss's system or a new coach's system, if you're trying to adjust to it, yes, it's going to take time. It's going to take you're going to have a little bit of second guessing. I know the point that you're going to make, and I'll make it for you. Yes, majority of this team is the exact same from last year, so they know what's going on. They should expect what's going on. But if you have other people trying to tie into this, or maybe something's changed since last season with new additions, and maybe they're trying out something different. We don't know that, right? For me, it's an overreaction 3 matches into the season. That's how I look at it. I understand why that's going to happen. I completely get it. But I think it is a slight overreaction this early into the season.
I totally agree with you, Matt. And yeah, very, very well said. I think it's an overreaction from the sample size, and it's hard. I can see why you get there, and Collins, you made a lot of good points. Like, you made solid points. But what I come back to is the players have a say in this as well. And the players aren't delivering equally in this equation. And for whatever reason, and I don't know what it is, and you can make the argument that it's due to the system, but when Kai Havertz is one-on-one with a keeper, that's not system anymore. That's him one-on-one with a keeper, and we've seen multiple times since we've signed him squander those opportunities. And you can't tell me that's because he's unhappy with the system he's playing. That's something wrong with him. Like, that's something going on in his head. And Tuchel can't coach that any differently. Like, he can't coach that into him scoring in that situation. When he finds himself with the ball at his feet and a goalie to beat, will he slot it in or not? And if he doesn't, that's on him. That's not on the fucking manager. I don't care what you say. We can use volleyball analogies all night. If the setter puts up the perfect set and the hitter goes up, no block, and he hits it into the net, that is not system anymore. That is on that player and what he did to execute that play. It's ownership, and you can tie it into a bigger issue of identity and chemistry and all of these other things. Sure. And I get that all of those things are important when evaluating a team, and something seems to be off. I think the quickest fix is fixing the manager, because you can't sell off an entire team tomorrow. Like, that's impossible. I just think that's the quick fix. I don't think that's necessarily always the right fix. I think that with time and buy-in and players buying into the system and getting the right people in and making some hard decisions. You know, we all look at Mason Mount with rosy colored glasses because he's an academy kid, and Reece James with rosy colored glasses, but in the right way, right? Like, we support what he does, but finding the right fit for where some of these guys might be on a pitch, and starting to, I would let me back up from my ramble and make the actual point I'm trying to make. I would rather, and this is going to be bold, I would rather take 6th this year, but put all of the right pieces in place than to win next year, than to continue being at 4th or 3rd, but not having a real chance to compete. I'd rather take a step backwards and take 2 years to figure this whole thing out and really dive into what our problems are as a whole team, and then individually make the right moves to put the right people in place to figure out who's going to buy into a Thomas Tuchel system, give them a 4-year contract, and make them prove it after that. That's what I would rather see over time, because quick fixes, as we've seen, don't make big improvements. And the example I'll use is a team like Arsenal, who hasn't been relevant the past 3 years. They have sucked for the past 3 years, but they completely rebuilt. They're young, they're dynamic, they're exciting, and they're fast. And they bought into a manager who didn't have success for the first 3-4 years that he was in the charge of the club with Arteta. And there's something now. Now they're actually like pushing for something. And I'd rather be in those shoes down the road than constantly being close, but not really being close, because we can feel it. We're not close. We're not there yet. And so apologies for the long rant, but that's my summary.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that. I think as has been well documented, under Roman, there has been a very quick trigger finger on managers. Liverpool, that's another example, right? They were meh. They were kind of competitive at times with Brendan Rodgers. Then Klopp came in. They were still trying to get themselves sorted out. Now you see what they are now. Pep, he just goes to whatever team is stacked, and then just kind of makes these random changes every now and again. But it's just one of those things where we have to buy into actually having time for a manager, and that's something that we're not used to. We're always so quick to be like, yep, get a new manager. Who, as of right now, who would you find? Right now, today, Collins, who would you find?
Graham Potter.
Okay. Realistically, who would you find?
Why is that not realistic? Why Bowley spent $50 million on a second starting left wing back? Who's to say he's not going to buy out the rest of Potter's contract?
There's no way that he would leave Brighton right now.
Why?
No way. There's no way.
For I'm sure what would be like triple his salary. Why wouldn't he leave Brighton? Because Chelsea is the next step to the England job for Potter.
Right. Here's my kind of counter argument to that, and I emphasize kind of. Right now, why would you want to go to Chelsea? With knowing, again, strictly money, fine, strictly money. Okay, cool. Guess what? Do you know the pressure that you're going to be under? Do you know the pressure and how relaxed you are at a team like Brighton, where you don't have a ton of expectation, right? You can just do what you need to do. We talked about this. You're comfortable. Why would you want to go somewhere that is uncomfortable? Strictly for money? Fine. If that's the case, then whatever. But knowing that he brought up Brighton and he's done a great job with that team and he's loved there, why would he want to leave?
I think you're underestimating the competitive edge of when you become a Premier League manager. You don't just like get to being a mid-table team and you're like, I'm happy here. I don't want any more challenges. Nope, I'm good. But no, like I'm sorry, but if you are happy with that, you're not going to last long as a Premier League manager at all. That was a dumb that was a dumb take. I'm just going to call that out right now.
So let me further elaborate on that, because I understand your point. So I didn't get my true point across. Maybe there is an aspect of loyalty. That's how I'll that was the point that I wanted to make. There's a point of loyalty. So my bad for not getting that across. There's a point of loyalty to that. Like if he came through with Brighton, kind of like Eddie Howe, right? He's not a great example right now because he's with Newcastle, but he's stuck with Bournemouth the entire time, right? In the championship.
Is a good one for your argument.
Yeah. Like,
but also somebody I would have managed Chelsea.
Right. But I'm saying like people that are loyal to the club that they came up with, right? You don't see that a lot anymore because it's a revolving door of managers nowadays, right? You cycle through the same exact people. I think that there is an aspect of loyalty, and that's why I think Graham Potter would not come to Chelsea, at least right now. End of the year, possibly, but not right at the start of a new year, anything like that. That's why I think it's very unrealistic.
Let me throw this name at you then. Zinedine Zidane.
No. There's
Dude.
no way. There is no way he would come to the Premier League.
Dude has 2 hands worth of Champions League trophies.
There is no way
as
he
a,
would
as
come
a
to the
player
Premier
and a
League. It's not
manager.
even realistic.
Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, why wouldn't
He would
he?
not come to the Premier League.
Why?
Why wouldn't he?
He said that he won't come to the Premier League.
I'm Googling that. I don't believe that for a fucking second.
And Brendan Rodgers says Fofana's not for sale. Like what?
No.
But so
I'm pretty sure
so-
Zidane said that because he didn't want to go to Manchester United. Sorry, Parker, go ahead.
No, it's fine. The thing you guys touched on was 1/3 of the holy trinity of what people get motivated by, which is money, but power and respect are the other two. And if someone's gunning for an England job or gunning for more clout in the soccer world, it's, Chelsea's the biggest stage that you can go to. Chelsea's a little bit in shambles, and if you're kind of unseating Thomas Tuchel as the manager, like big shoes to fill, big time. And if you can turn that around and you can turn this into a team, I mean, like look forward 3 years. If you take over the job and you win the Premier League from City and Liverpool and you win a Champions League title, you're ungodly. Like you're at the highest of highs. And so it's a team that's set up for success. We're not there, obviously. But if you're looking for money, power, and respect, like there are very few options you can go to, and Chelsea's one of those teams. That's why people take the job, even though they know they're under constant scrutiny. They know their ass is toast if they screw it up. But the allure of all of those things is there, and not many places in the world can provide that.
Right. So at that point, you're very high risk, high reward. And the backfire to that is if you do take the job with Chelsea and you do want that next England manager job or whatever, and if you bomb it at Chelsea, you're fucked.
Are you?
I personally think that you are.
Look at the last 10 managers for Chelsea and where
I
they
do
are
think
now.
so. One other thing, I do think that, well, all those managers already had reputations before they even came to Chelsea. Graham Potter doesn't really have one besides bringing Brighton up to the Premier League and making them relatively competitive. I think the better story, if you are going for an England manager job, is sticking with the team that you came with and bringing them to the top, if not close to the top, and making them a top 10 team consistently. I almost think that's better than running the risk of getting the Chelsea job, you tank it, and then you're kind of screwed you kind of set yourself back another 5-8 years, maybe forever. To me, that's just too much risk, depending on what your actual motive is. Gareth Southgate, who did he coach before he got the job? I don't know much about him.
Same here. I think he was the England U23s coach before taking over. So that was more of a system hire than it was reputation hire.
I don't know. And let me be very clear about this. I would have no problem with Graham Potter as a manager of Chelsea. I would have no issue with that. Do I think it's realistic? As of today, no. Do I think that he would take the opportunity? Potentially. I mean, we saw that with who was the Wolverhampton manager, Nuno.
Huh.
Yeah, that's all I had to say. Right? Wolverhampton did a great job there. went to a big club, Tottenham. Nobody's
Big club.
fuck off. He went to a top 6 club according to the terms of what the top 6. So, and then he was out 6 months later. Like,
Matt, I'm gonna have to go back and look because I vaguely remember this. Weren't you the one saying we should hire Nuno?
yes. Yes, I was. Because I think we had the right people to fit his system, minus the fact that none of our players are from Portugal.
That little hang up.
That little guy? I don't worry about that little guy.
Collins, it's a theoretical debate, but one where I really want to see us buy in. I want to see players buy into the system. It's past they're out of their like preferred role. It's buying into, because we see the chances that the system creates, and to me they're really good chances. Like I watch the matches, I see goal scoring opportunities. I mean, Sterling put the ball in the back of the net today. He was offside, sure, but like we were in a good situation to score. Like the issue isn't necessarily we're not in good spots to score. It's just execution, some of the little things. We got caught offside fucking 6-7 times. Like it was a ridiculous amount, way too many.
The ghost of
And
Timo Werner.
to me, that's a player issue. That's not a coaching issue. Like that's a player issue. When you get caught offside 7 times, it's not on Tuchel. Like that's on our guys. And I think more ownership needs to be taken by our players than the manager, because they're the ones out there executing, and they were the ones making mistakes. Like Edouard Mendy, that's not a system issue. He took a touch and then he took a second touch and he got caught. Like that's not a system issue. Then that changed the whole game.
System is a broad statement, I guess, because
obviously I'm making hyperbole out of this whole thing.
Right.
Obviously, clearly, but I think the point stands. Like I think more onus needs to be placed on the players, because it's not just all tactics at the end of the day.
One little caveat to that, or one little added tidbit. Watching the Last Dance documentary for, I don't know what time it was for me, probably the 10th. Nobody ever is like, yeah, that's Thomas Tuchel's fault that Raheem Sterling was offsides or Kai Havertz was offsides. No, that's all on the players. They're given what they need to do. If they're offsides, that's on them. Tuchel can't tell them, all right, at this exact moment, stop and then go again. It's on them.
I think that's a fair argument if we're talking about onesie twosie little offsides, 1 or 2 every match. But at Chelsea, since Tuchel has taken over, it's consistently like 5, 6, 7 per match. It is an insane amount, and you talk about that. You talk about some of these rash challenges. You talk about things like that. You talk about Mendy. This is not the first time we've seen Mendy. It's the first time we've seen him get caught by it. But there's been a lot of times where we have been freaking out because, oh my God, like what the fuck is he doing? Yeah, I'm not disagreeing that some of it's on the player, but it's on the coach to instill a little bit of discipline in his team. Like again, 5, 6, 7 offsides per match. I don't know if that's a realistic number, but that's what it feels like every single match. Is excessive. That's a lot. That's something you can coach. You talk about Edward Mendy, and I've talked about him being on the decline for a little while now. That's something you can work on. Hey, you do that again, I'm fucking putting Keppa in. I'm going to put Bettinelli on the bench, and you're going to stay home with the U23s. There are things you can do as a coach to mitigate some of these. But I had another question before that. Okay, all right, here we go. You guys, from what you guys have been saying, I'm just reading into what you guys are saying, are very pro, I've heard, buy into the system, right? You want Tuchel to be there for a while, and bring in his guys and him instill his system. Why? Based off of what you've seen over the last year and 3/4, almost, it's going to be 2 years and a couple months here. Why?
We've go ahead, Parks.
Yeah, because I think with a resolute defense, a defense that allows 1 or less goals a game, and then the attacking wing play that we've seen with the wing backs, and then a pretty dynamic midfield, I think that's a recipe for success in the Premier League. I think that whole system works. When it works, it works. And having Reece James and then Cucurella and like Ben Chilwell, those are some of the right pieces for that. I would like another center back that's like on the same level of Thiago Silva. Like I would like another rock back there. But I think the whole thing is predicated on allowing 1 or less goals, because we're not built to score a ton of goals. And I mean, that was the system that won us the Champions League, because we didn't give up goals. We bent, didn't break. We would counter, and we would play with this great wing presence that would allow us to break. You can definitely make the argument that a different system might suit us better today, and that's fair. But I also think that the system that's there also has a lot of promise to work as well. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. I really think it has promise to work.
I'm gonna start this off by saying fuck Barcelona, because we haven't yet. We tried going after Lewandowski. We tried Rafinha. We tried Conde. Delict, I think, went to Bayern. Like, it's not for a lack of, like, we're not trying to get people. And I think that's, like, we're actively trying to get people to come to Chelsea. Why they aren't, that's a whole different thing, and why they keep going to Barcelona is beyond me, considering they're going to take a 70% pay cut in a year. But like, we're actively trying to go out and get people. Unfortunately, now we're in a position where we need to find the backups to our primary targets, right? And we have to pay a ridiculous amount of money, because it's been very public that we need these pieces. And so people are going to jack up the price. Like Cucurella. Is he worth that much? I personally don't think so. But is he playing very well right now? Absolutely. I just think that once we get everything in place, given time, because like I said, we've had the Collins, you're my stat guy. Can you tell me how many managers Chelsea has had in the last 20 years? Or actually, since the Premier League. Because the Premier League is 30 years old. as of this year, right? I think it started in 92. So the Premier League is 30 years old.
Yeah, I meant to bring up the list here because it leads into my point, but let me pull it up here because I did not.
One every
Um,
2-ish years.
yeah, if you look at, I mean, you got to count the guys who are here twice.
Yep.
But names alone, there have been 13.
13, we know Ancelotti has had 2 stints, right?
Goose Hiddink has had 2. I think
Mourinho has had 3.
Avram Grant has had 2, I think.
So we're ballparking 20 managers or 20 manager changes in that 30 years. There's no consistency. Yes, Mr. Collins, go ahead.
How many trophies have we won in that time? More than 1 per year. So if you're looking at the data, if you're looking at the statistics, and this is not a small sample size at all, this is, like you said, it's about 30
I know where
years.
you're going. Yep.
And even if you narrow it down to just the Abramovich era, which is more relevant because prior to that we didn't have the money that we have now. Why fix what's not broken? It's working, clearly. Why buy into, we use the Liverpool example a lot on this pod. What has Jurgen Klopp won? 1 Premier League, 1 Champions League, right? And I think 3 domestic cups. In how many years?
They won the Champions League?
Yeah, I said Champions League.
I'm asking. I didn't think they did.
Yeah, they did. They beat Spurs.
Who
But
hasn't?
what is that better? Is that better than what we've done? Like, yeah, our system isn't the system isn't. Yeah, it doesn't make you feel good. You don't like seeing your manager getting fired. You don't like not being able to get attached to somebody who is managing your club, but it works.
So I guess this would fall back on the question of which one's more important. Because if we're talking about being a title competitor in the Premier League, that's probably not going to be the case in the current era. Over, let's say, the last 5 years. That's not going to be the case because it's been Liverpool and City. And they have had time to like cultivate their teams, get who they want in. If they need to replace people, they have depth. They have people that buy into the manager's system. The managers have had time to do that. We have not.
That's my argument though, is that you don't need that. You had Sir Alex Ferguson there for 20 years, and yeah, he won a lot, but we still nicked away several trophies from him. You had Arsene Wenger at Arsenal.
I mean, you're not going to win every. Well, okay, let's get Arsene Wenger out of there. You're not going to win it every single year. Like I get that. I'm not saying like just because you have one manager, you're going to win it every single year. No, you're not. You got people leaving, people moving, different pieces. I get that. But I think the game is changing. And I think we're still a little bit behind with this revolving door of managers as we've seen in the last 5 years, because it's been a 2-horse race. And although we think we're close, I still think that we are a long way behind.
And the argument, to me, the argument is, are we closer if we stay with Tuchel or if we change? Are we closer to winning a Premier League championship if we change or if we stay? Right. That's how we have to evaluate this. And I think we might get closer if we change right away because you get that instant kind of little surge, but I don't know if it's enough to close the gap. So therefore, I think buy-in with a solid manager is gets us closer in the long term to winning a Premier League than the short-term gains. And that's a very theoretical, subjective opinion on this take. That's a very impossible thing to evaluate, which I totally acknowledge. I don't know. I think it seems like the teams that we're facing are built up over time, and the quick fixes don't might not work anymore.
So I guess my argument against that is the transfer ban in 2018-19 was the worst thing that has ever happened to our club. I know a lot of people say it's the greatest thing that ever happened to our club because we got Reece James, we got Tammy Abraham, we got Mason Mount. But that stopped the club's momentum of what we were doing in buying up the best players in Europe, in South America, in some cases from Africa, and just letting them go out and do the thing. And, every 18 months, 24 months, if you need a new manager to get that bump, you need a new manager. Like that's no problem. But once that hit, then it's Frank Lampard getting hired, who only had 1 year experience at Derby. That set us back. Then you got the transfer ban. Well, I said the transfer ban, but then you're not allowed to continue to funnel in those 3 to 4 players every year, those elite players every year, and you're having to trust Cobham. I love Cobham. I think Cobham does a great job creating, supplemental players. Reece James being the exception. I think Reece James is the star out of there. But I'm not somebody who subscribes to, we need to be playing 5 to 6 academy graduates every single match. I think that's bullshit. Had we continued down that path prior to that transfer ban, I think it's a 3-horse race every single year, because I think we just continued doing what we're doing. And granted, the whole Russia-Ukraine war kind of probably throws a wrench in it too. And I think that one's kind of unavoidable. But overall, I think if we continue down that same path, I think it's a 3-horse race pretty consistently, because we had proven over 20, 25 years that for our club, it's an effective way to run things. And it's proven in the amount of trophies that you're bringing in every single year, even against clubs where they have managers for 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get that, and I think that whole piece is a very opinionistic thing. Like, for me personally, I would be, yes, give somebody time, let them do what they need to do, build the team that they need, go from there. And Collins, to your point, it's worked out in the past, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I think with new ownership, I think now is the time to start looking at, I'm not saying it has to be with Tuchel. Like, it could be with anybody, whether it's Tuchel, whether it's Graham Potter next year, right? I think you need to give somebody time, like more than 18 months. Like, we gave Mourinho, he had 3 years. He won the trophy, and then he was gone halfway through the season when Gus Hiddink came back, right? You gave him 3 years. He gave us a title. Like, it can't just be an 18-month thing. Like, you have to give some people some time to implement what they want to do. And I think with Tuchel, as controversial as he is with a lot of the Chelsea fan base, give him time and see what he does. I know he kind of has a history of wearing out clubs and and the higher ups and stuff like that, like he did with Dortmund and PSG. Like I get that, but at the same time, you got new ownership. Give him a chance, see what he can do. If it doesn't pan out, you go in a different direction. But at the first sign of adversity, you can't just jump ship.
The only risk is if you spend 300 million over a couple of windows for all Tuchel guys, and then it doesn't work out, then it might set us back for a while. That's the only counter argument I can see to the whole thing. But I'm still very much in the Tuchel camp. I do trust what he brings. I like his passion. I like his leadership. And I think there's a bit of a divide between the player and the manager right now. But I don't think it's a gap that can't get met over time. I do believe that I think it can get there. Like I trust the system and the players that are in the system to buy into it, that it can be special. I've seen it be special. I've seen moments where it's very special. And I think it's a sustainable thing. But Collins, this is why I didn't want our wheel, because I felt like we could just talk about this whole topic for an hour.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, well, it's not prefacing because this is at the end. I'm gonna epilogue this by saying I'm not necessarily, I like to think of myself as kind of a long-term outlook kind of guy, but in the year we've been doing this pod, I've been realizing that I'm pretty reactionary.
No.
It may be a reactionary take. I mean, but it has taken. Normally, I'm pretty on beat with, Chelsea fans and all that with the manager, losing ground and all that. But I like to think that with Tuchel, I've kind of given time to sort things out. Like, I think this is the longest I've probably gone with negative results and then being like, okay, that's enough. But just today, the embarrassment of today kind of set me over the edge. So just for the record, 8/21/2022 is the day that I announced the Tuchel era is done.
All I'm going to say, just to cap off my thoughts, is at least our rivals haven't taken all 9 points. Arsenal is the only team that's sitting at 9 points right now. So everyone else has dropped points, and Man U plays Liverpool tomorrow. So at least our at least no one's running away at this stage. And I know you can't run away with 3 games played. I understand that, but the Premier League feels more balanced than it has in prior years. I mean, have you guys watched Fulham play at all?
I love watching Fulham. They're one of my
Fulham's fucking exciting to watch. Like they're a squad that can play. And when was the last time newly promoted teams kind of gave people a run for their money? It feels like a more balanced league this year than it has in years prior. So maybe that's just me looking with, again, rosy colored glasses of maybe this is a more balanced league and more points will be dropped than not. But it's going to be an exciting league, and it's going to be an exciting year. And we're only 3 games in, and there is a lot of time for improvement. I mean, if you just look at this run in isolation and we go off to win the next 6, it'll be quickly forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of an exciting team, have you guys ever seen Leeds play? They're a lot of fun to watch.
Where's their manager from?
Canada.
I'm leaving this podcast right now. See you guys.
But in all honesty, like I actually do enjoy watching Leeds when they don't shell Chelsea. But Like they're and I was worried about this when we did our preseason pod. I was worried about this game because that's how they are. They're a quick team. They don't give a fuck. Like they're just gonna go and do whatever they need to do. They will run you into the ground, and that's what they did today. And like I understand that we want to play this like clean, somewhat poetic style of football, but when you're going up against teams like that, teams that on paper you would consider bottom of the table, on paper you would consider them, right? Like Chelsea versus Leeds. Well, that's Chelsea probably 2-0, 3-0 all day. It's not the same anymore. And Parker, I think you said it perfectly. Like United is bottom of the table right now. I never thought I would ever see that day, but I'm so happy I'm here to see that. Like,
Can we have a shitting on United moment?
oh, absolutely.
If they don't score against Liverpool tomorrow, their goal of the month is going to have to be an own goal.
Own goal.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry I interrupted, Matt. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. But no, that it kind of feeds right into it. Like Liverpool United, right? Huge rivalry. Doesn't really seem like one. Like that used to be the big thing. Now it's just like, oh, it's Liverpool who are sitting what? I don't know where they're at. 5th or 6th, probably, or whatever. But
Sitting on 4 points.
like there's not that much behind it besides the names, right? It's just Liverpool against United. It doesn't seem like that. And Parker, that gets to your point of how well balanced it seems like this league is getting. Like people want to come and play for, your mid-table team. And they're getting these younger players who might have been good in a different league that we would consider a lot lower than the Premier League, but they're still coming over and they want to play for these teams, and they're showing out in a big way. I also want this on the record. I said that we should sign Brendan Aronson. Collins, you laughed at me.
I still do.
Kiss my ass. I'm just saying
So,
he scored more than Kai Havertz this year.
Liverpool's on 2 points. They have 2 draws.
Oh.
There's a Liverpool's in 15th. Man United, only because West Ham sucks more, is in 19th because West Ham has a -5 goal differential and they haven't scored yet this year.
So 2 of your big six teams are now 15th and 19th playing in a derby tomorrow.
So just for fun, listen to this, guys. 15th is Liverpool, 16th is Everton, 17th is Wolves, 18th is Leicester, 19th is Man United, and 20th is West Ham.
The only team that doesn't belong there is Liverpool. All those other teams can fuck off.
When teams like Bournemouth, Villa, Southampton, Nottingham, Crystal Palace, Brentford,
Isn't Brighton too?
Fulham, just
Graham Potter.
Brighton, Tottenham, Leeds, Arsenal are all above them. Get the fuck out of here, Collins. All of those teams are ahead of those 6.
We're playing the alphabetical table.
That is an upside down table right now. It's absolutely upside down.
Yeah, isn't Brighton 2 right now?
Brighton is 5th. They're on 7. They're tied. I mean, on points they're tied.
Oh, goal differential.
With the tiebreakers and shit, they're in 5th. But yeah, I mean, Brighton's on 7 points with City, Leeds, and Tottenham.
Wow.
Yeah. Fuck them all. Super League. Let's go. I'm taking that off the record. I don't want that. That's going to kill our podcast right there.
Please don't. Please don't. We're going to get fined.
He gets China back in, though.
I was trying to think of a Chinese team name and I can't.
No comment.
Edit that out. Nope, edit that out.
No comment.
All right, boys.
One child per team.
I believe the thing that got us banned was
I wasn't gonna say it.
all right. Good night.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that.